back to the Button Tree Book Club. This week we are discussing the Gemma Doyle Trilogy. Originally I was going to make this a 3-part mini-series talking about each book, but after getting partway through book 3 and still not being done because sweet poor thing, book 3, yeah, it's a lot thick. It's more than 800 pages, and as much as I wish I had 8 hours a day to just sit around and read books, I don't. I got through book 1 and 2 in about 2 days each, and then I got to book 3, and I get through maybe 50 pages a night, and that's not gotten me very far. So, we'll be talking about the whole series, mostly characters and the plot development in book 1 and 2 up to book 3. I mean, I don't really want to spoil the ending of the trilogy anyway, in case anyone else hasn't finished. So, let's start with book 1, A Great and Terrible Beauty. So we have Gemma. She's 16, moves to London to go to a boarding school, Spence, after her mother's tragic death. There's a whole lot that I loved about this book. I got through book 1, I think, in a day, maybe like a day and a little bit. I got through it really fast. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The same goes for book 2. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Book 3, I haven't gotten through it yet, but I would probably give it closer to 3 out of 5 because it's so dense, and the fact that I've been reading it for over a week and I'm still not even halfway done. Like, I don't know how long it's gonna take me to finish it just because I want it to keep moving and it's not moving fast enough for me. But I'm someone who likes things that keep things moving. And I think if you're looking for a series that's gonna just keep going, it definitely... Book 1 did decently. Book 2 dragged a bit here and there. Book 3... I'm sure, like, the ending and, like, everything's gonna be great, but... Man... I am not done with book 3. I hope to finish it soon, and maybe I'll do, like, a second video later when I finally do finish it talking about the whole series. But let's just talk about book 1, book 2, and maybe a bit about book 3. If you have not finished reading book 1 and 2, and you don't like spoilers, then I would go read the books and then come back, because there will probably be spoilers about book 1 and book 2. Alright, but I want to talk about these characters. So Gemma, she's 16, she's off at a boarding school, and she discovers that there's magic in this world. This is a fantasy world. She discovers that she's got access to something called the realms, and she, of course, has to have sidekicks, so she recruits some friends. They are Felicity, Pippa, and Anne, and the 4 of them go into the realms, and then they use magic, and it's kind of like illusion magic, so they can, like, conjure things, but it's not real. I mean, it's kind of real. It's hard to explain. Overall, like... Oh, Felicity. I missed Felicity. So there's Felicity, Pippa, Anne, and Gemma. Gemma is the one that they know has magic. Anne, Pippa, and Felicity just kind of feed off of her magic. The 4 girls, they drove me nuts. And it kind of stayed, like, throughout the whole series up to where I'm at. They drive me crazy. Gemma is probably the most tolerable, but maybe that's because I'm in her head. Like, this is written in the first person, so it's written from Gemma's perspective. Maybe it's because I'm in her head. But I want to end talking about Gemma, because there's so much more about her because we're in her head the whole time. I want to talk about the other 3 girls, because they were characters. So we got Felicity. She's the head girl, she's the mean girl, she's bossy, she's controlling. She's like the stereotypical cliche, head girl, mean girl, like everyone does what she wants and everyone's afraid of her. Which kind of makes sense because her whole character trait is that she feels powerless. So she's doing everything to get power. She comes from a wealthy family with some crazy backstories. I don't want to spoil too much about her backstory, like that a lot of that's revealed in the second book. Like she's got some stuff going on. And there's a reason for her to want this power. But she also doesn't want to be controlled. She wants power and no one controlling her, which I guess kind of goes together. Towards the end of book 1, you could just tell she's gonna be this wild card. I mean, you want to think she's gonna be a good guy. I don't know. I mean, even where I am in book 3, I still don't know. She could still take a major power trip and go evil. I don't know. But in book 1, she goes a little crazy, a little power crazy. She decides to sacrifice an animal to try to gain more power. It doesn't go well. I mean, nothing really happens. It's just a very disturbing scene. She kind of hits a bit of a sobering wall at the end of book 1, but then she's right back to her crazy self in book 2 and book 3. She just wants power for herself, and I think that's kind of a theme for everyone in this book. Gemma is the only one with this ultimate power kind of thing, like she's the high one, she's the super powerful one, and everyone wants that power, and too many people are trying to friend her just for that power. Pippa. Pippa is probably the one I like the least of the group, but I pitied her the most at times, especially in book 1. So in book 1, she's engaged to a dude that's like 30, 40 years older than her. So I get it, that's gross. Like, I get that in this era, and it was more common, but still, ew. Being paired off with a dude the same age as your own father, against what you want, it's weird and gross. So she wants to escape that. And, so I get that. I would want to escape that too. But she's just so petty, and she's mean. She is your mean girl sidekick. She's almost worse than Felicity. Felicity, I feel like, has some redeeming qualities, but Pippa, I couldn't find many other than just her wanting to escape this horrible, horrible marriage. I found her overall, like, even in book 2. So at the end of book 1, I'm gonna spoil something. At the end of book 1, Pippa dies, but she doesn't leave. So Pippa dies and then becomes part of the realms, and that's where she is. I mean, again, I don't know where she's at fully in book 3. She's still in the realms in book 3. She decides she doesn't want to live, so she goes, so she's got a medical problem, and she uses that medical problem, and it ultimately leads to her dying, but she chooses in the realms because her spirit's there. Like, she's like in this limbo place where she's not dead, she's not alive, and then she eats these magical berries in the realm, which keep her there, so she dies. Her character doesn't get any better in book 2. Her character's just needy and clingy, and not in a way that made me pity her anymore. Book 1, I pitied her because she's stuck in this horrible marriage, and her parents want her to get married so that whoever she marries doesn't find out about her medical condition, and it's this big game. Book 2, she's just clingy and bossy. Like, she's always wanting them to come back. She wants power, this, that. It was annoying. Anne. I don't know what to think of Anne half the time. Her character is very wishy-washy, and I couldn't take it at points. She's so eager to please and be seen and be beautiful. She's constantly compromising who she is, whoever that is, to do it, and the realms really don't help her. I don't know. Again, I'm not done with book 3. I could see her going down a dark path. I mean, in book 2, she uses magic to, like... No, she doesn't use magic. That's not until book 3. Book 2, she just pretends to take on a title to get into society a little bit, and it's just kind of silly. Like, the fact that they think it's gonna work is silly, and the fact that it works at all is sillier. Book 3, she uses magic to change her form, and it gets her into things. It gets her into potential futures outside of the future she's supposed to go into. She's supposed to go and be a governess after she's done at school. The only reason she's there is she's on a scholarship, and she wants to escape that, which, again, I get it, but her character was just so willing to do anything to get away from it. Like, she's such a people pleaser. She doesn't seem to care about herself at all. And I will say the one thing I think was good about her characters, they show a different kind of character, because she's a character that cuts herself. And that's a very serious topic, and I don't want to go into that too much because I don't fully understand it. It's a psychological thing, it's an emotional thing, it's a mental thing, and it's a really sad thing. So I understand that there's something psychological going on there, but the realms and magic aren't helping her and not helping that. And by the time I'm in book 3, I feel like Felicity and Pippa might have been dealing with some inner demons, some of those problems. I don't think that Anne really has. I think she's still trying to find herself, and she's still just trying to escape. I mean, Felicity hasn't really solved all of, like, Felicity could just take a total dip and become evil. I could see it. I could see the same for Anne, though. Pippa, I mean, I could see all 3 of them going evil and turning on Gemma. Honestly, okay, now I gotta get to Gemma, because Gemma picks the worst friends. Like, I think Gemma is just very inconsistent, and that drove me crazy. Like, I wanted her to just drop these 3. Like, Felicity, Pippa, and Anne, like, she should have just dropped them book 1, but she's still best friends with them by book 3, and I think it's silly. Like, clearly all they want from her is power. If she didn't have this power, she never would have gotten into their group. They would never have been a group if not for her power. I still don't know why she decided to tell them. Like, Felicity's a mean girl who's bossy and just wants control. Pippa's a spoiled brat. And Anne is just a wishy-washy people pleaser. Like, I think they all have redeemable qualities, but they're 16, 17, 18 years old. Like, they're teenage girls. Teenage girls are stupid. Like, okay, there's this one part in book 1. I have to talk about this because it just, the second it happened, I just went, really? So, these girls are idiots in book 1. So, they're toying with magic. They're trying to do things they've been told not to. So, here's a quote from book 1. I think it's Anne. Anne is saying, "You sure you know what you're doing?" Gemma responds, "No, but Mary and Sarah did it. It can't be that difficult." Okay, some context. Mary and Sarah are girls that died 25 years ago. They died because of using this magic, or so that's what they think at this point. So they're gonna try to do the same thing. They died. They think they're smarter than these girls, and I'm like, you're idiots. They're dead, and you want to do what they did. That's so incredibly unsmart. And that is the trend you see over and over again. These girls think that they're so much smarter than those of the past, and they think that they're all, like, they can outsmart history and they can make it different. They're dumb. They're so dumb. And it made them really intolerable at points. Now, the plot itself, I appreciate the world. I appreciate the concept. I just wish these characters could be a little more redeemable. Gemma is the most redeemable, but she's just so inconsistent. Okay, I gotta talk about book 2 for a minute. Because Rebel Angels was interesting. So Rebel Angels takes place, it's the winter holidays, it's time for Christmas and New Year's. I think New Year's is in there. They're going over the holidays. Anne decides to pretend to be someone she's not, and goes well for a while until it doesn't, because, you know, that's what was gonna happen. So we find out that, so the 2 girls that they think died, they didn't really die. One of them is Gemma's mother, Mary. The other one is Sarah, and she now goes by, okay, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, I'm gonna say Circe. It's C-I-R-C-E, Circe. And she's like the big villain. Well, at least up to this point, that's what I know. And this whole time in book 1, you're supposed to think that they have no idea where it is. They think Sarah's dead. Then book 2, they find out, oh, Sarah's not actually dead. She lives. And they think it's this new teacher that's come to Spence right before the holidays, Miss McLeathy. But it turns out Miss McLeathy, here's the big spoiler. If you don't like big spoilers, you don't like big plot spoils, don't listen any further. The big plot spoil of book 2 is the teacher from book 1, Miss Moore, the whole time was Circe. My mind was blown. I should have figured it out long before I did. Like, it really, once you see it, it's so obvious. But up until that point, I had no clue it was coming. And then I was like, yeah, no, that's actually really obvious. But Miss Moore, being Circe, was like, what? Shouldn't I have figured this out sooner? I'm typically pretty good at figuring these things out. I love mysteries, and I love piecing them together. But I have to say, I didn't see it coming until it actually happened, which was surprising. And then we have Kartik. I gotta talk about Kartik. Kartik is Gemma's love interest, I guess. Again, I have no clue what actually ends up happening with them. All I know is she's in love with him. He is something towards her. Like, they have this roller coaster. It's your standard love-hate relationship. Book 1, they seem like they're really close. Book 2, they get closer. And then I'm in the beginning of book 3, and now, like, they're in this weird place where he cares, but he doesn't. He seems indifferent, like something's happened. He is part of a group called the Rakshana, who are guardians to the order that is those who can go into the realms. They were, in times past, the Rakshana and the order were together. The Rakshana protected the order could go into the realms. The order's very confusing. I didn't bring it up till now because the order is something that's barely in there. It's constantly brought up, but you don't really see much of it. But the order is what's starting, they're trying to form back in the 3rd book, but I haven't gotten very far, so I don't know what's actually happening with that yet. But the Rakshana is what Kartik is a part of for book 1 and 2, and then book 3, he leaves them because he protects Gemma when he was supposed to kill her. Why? I don't understand. like, she was supposed to allow the Rakshana power, but if you kill her, how does she give you power? Didn't make sense to me. But Kartik's character is more confusing. He's got this weird sense of duty and honor, and he's very up and down. Like, he clearly cares about Gemma, but for some reason, he's I don't want to say resisting, but like, he's just suddenly indifferent. But there's clearly a reason. Like, something clearly happened. I mean, there's been a time gap. Clearly something happened to him. I don't know what. I really do want to find out. I do hope to finish this book. He's refused to go into the realm so far. Somehow I think that's going to change. Like, now that he's not part of the Rakshana, because as the Rakshana, they weren't supposed to go into the realms. They were just supposed to protect the order that would go into the realms. But now that he's not Rakshana, I could see him going into the realms for some reason. It could have to do with just, like, curiosity. He had a brother. Brother, like, dies at the very beginning of book 1. Could be he's finally going to go look for his brother if he thinks he's there. I don't know. But overall, talking about the whole series, I give it between a 3 and a 4. I think the first person perspective worked well. I think from a third person, if it had been written in third person, I would have hated all the girls and I probably would have given up the series, like book 1. But being inside Gemma's head, I could at least understand some of her inconsistencies. Like, she's in mourning. I mean, her mother just died. So I can understand the inconsistencies, but sometimes they didn't seem connected to the emotions. They just seemed inconsistent, like her character didn't know what to do. I think read book 1. If you like book 1, go to book 2. If you like book 3, keep going. I don't know. This series, I felt very back and forth on whether or not I liked it or not. Like, there were moments I was absolutely screaming in my head saying, I'm not going to read anymore, because the characters drove me nuts. But the plot itself and the world were fascinating. I think that's what kept me going, because I wanted to know more about the world. And I still do. I think there's still a lot of mystery. And I think if you want to know more, you're going to have to read the books yourself. Alright, with our discussion of the Gemma Doyle Trilogy, it's time to talk about our next read. So normally it would be time to do a random drawing, but recently on Button Tree Gaming we have started playing The Call of Cthulhu, based on the lore of H.P. Lovecraft. So we decided, because we've enjoyed the game so much and we've gotten a decent portion into it, and we want to keep going, that we are actually going to read H.P. Lovecraft, especially Call of Cthulhu, and maybe a few others. I have my collection right here, H.P. Lovecraft Great Tales of Horror. So we're going to read a few of these, and we are going to do a mini-series of this. We'll do Call of Cthulhu. Let's see, I think we're going to do Dagon. Dagon's the classic. It's the first H.P. Lovecraft I ever read. And then we're looking at a few others. We haven't decided which, but we are doing Dagon, and we are definitely doing Call of Cthulhu. So next week, you should join us for our discussion of H.P. Lovecraft. Tell me what you thought of these books in the comments, and I will see you in the next Button Tree Book Club. Bye!